Call the December 10th Board of Selectmen meeting to order.
Board of Education.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to read it. I want that edited out. I need that edited out by my friend the Nobles.
We're really the Board of Ed, right?
Restart.
Take two.
Wendy, you're throwing me off here because you should be sitting here, honestly. Then I don't see that.
Sitting in the wrong chair.
I'd like to call the December 10th Board of Education regular meeting to order. Glad you're all here. We have people in our audience, which is always nice. I think we'll start with recognitions.
Great. So we had an opportunity right before Thanksgiving to attend a luncheon at Farmington Country Club, and it was to honor 2 students in our district for the CAP Superintendent's Award. And it's an award that really exemplifies students who are involved very much with service, excellent academic performance, and are really important parts of their school community. So we had a middle school honoree and a high school honoree who couldn't be here this evening, but Mr. Baker is here to introduce and talk a little bit about our middle school students. So it was great to have lunch with he and his family the other day.
Sure, thanks. We had a great lunch and a nice time to have some conversation. I'd like to introduce Brian Infasone as the middle school recipient. I talk a lot at Henry James to our students about the middle school stereotype, about the student who's self-absorbed and on their phone and just all about themselves and their friends. Brian is the antithesis of that in all the good ways. He's got 2 real passions. First being music. I believe he plays 5 different instruments. We were just talking about his decision to play the oboe in tomorrow night's concert, but also plays the flute, the French horn. English horn, sorry. Thank you for the correction. Piccolo, I better go back to my notes. But another passion he has is helping others, and that's really clear in all of his activities. He's involved in United Sound. For those who either don't know what United Sound is, it's a chance for students to make music with students with disabilities and really include everyone in the making of music at Henry James. Brian's involved in that. He's also involved in Citizens in Action, which is a group of students who mentors younger students down at Central School. He's given private music lessons to kids at Camp Lau, and then finds time to also help his grandma at the restaurant, is involved in Gifts of Love. So service is what Brian's all about, and it was really, it wasn't a hard decision when it came down to voting on students. So Henry James is extremely proud of Brian. We're really happy that he's representing us. In addition to all of that, he's an everyday representative of kindness and inclusion at Henry James. So congratulations.
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 That photo that we took. Yeah, you can give that to Brian. Thank you very much.
Brian, who do you have with you?
I have my mom and my dad, and they're very special people. And they really kind of shaped the person who I am. My dad always taught me to care about everybody, treat everybody the same. My mom taught me to be careful what you say and to just really think before you act. Sometimes I don't really do that. If I panic, then I will just panic. But also my teachers from previous years, 5th grade, Miss Larity, and then in, I want to say, 7th and 8th grade, Miss DeLeo, they really shaped me up because Miss Larity really taught us to just be responsible, to care about everybody, no matter what, how they are. And then Miss DeLeo was really just like passionate. She was like, do whatever you want, just play wherever you want for everybody, like whatever instrument you want, it doesn't matter. So she's a really good teacher.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and we love to see, and we can't wait to see what you do going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Are we going to talk about the high school?
Patch is going to come to a meeting
To a
in
separate,
January.
another meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Moving on to public audience. Seeing none, we'll move on to board and administrative communications.
Okay.
Kayla.
So first, I just want to say a huge thank you and like a shout out to a family new to the Latimer community, the Gordons. They founded the 50 States 50 Books organization, and their mission is to help close the literacy gap by donating diverse books to schools in need of them. So just a huge thank you to them for helping out with that. At Tooten Hills, the Tooten Hills School donated over 200 pounds of non-perishable food items for the Jack Bannon Turkey Trot. So a special thank you to all of the families that donated items. They also hosted a book fair reading night for reading with therapy dogs. At Squadron Line, they're excited to raise more money for the Connecticut Children's and get their name on the PJ Day map. They'll be joining with other schools and businesses across the state to honor patients who must wear their pajamas for days, weeks, or longer while fighting cancer or other serious illnesses. They'll also be having a jazz band concert for the 5th and 6th grade on January 8th. At Central School, on Friday, December 13th, they will also be participating in their 5th annual Hour of Code event. This event is part of the effort of the nonprofit organization Code.org, which is dedicated to expanding participation and awareness in computer science. At Terrafil last week, they had their 5th and 6th grade winter choral concert along with a performance by the junior chorus, and it was overall just a really great night. This week, they're looking forward to their 5th annual Hour of Code, which is dedicated to expanding participation and awareness in computer sciences. At the middle school, through the Department of Continuing Education, the HJMS World Language Department is offering an after-school opportunity for grade 6 students to explore Chinese, French, and Latin. Students decorated a giant papier-mâché turkey with feathers saying what they're thankful for before break, and they donated over 50 turkeys and many boxes of food to the Turkey Trot, and also raised $750 for the Freedom Penathon project that supports veterans organizations. They are also looking for help raising money for the school, and you can help by just shopping on Amazon at no extra cost to you. Go to smile.amazon.com and choose Henry James Memorial School Parent Teacher Council as your charity. Then every time you shop on Amazon, go to smile.amazon.com, and an easier way, you can just bookmark it, and Amazon will donate a portion of your purchase to the middle school. And at the high school, the annual Stuff Cruiser event is almost complete, and on Friday, December 13th, we'll be filling the cruisers with toys during Connect.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent report. Sharon.
So today I actually attended the Cape New Board training. Had a great day. I know it was a long day, but it was like being at work. But I found it informative. I mean, we went over roles and responsibilities of a new board member. We talked through some of the, the importance of meeting with our legislators to keep up on policies and regulations. But it was also an opportunity to network. So I also got to see Lydia in action. But it was a great day. It was really a great day, and so more to come.
Great.
All right.
Brian?
Well, thank you for attending today. You were one of 150 strong new board members across the state, so so it was quite an experience, but we hope you got the most of it. And Brian, since you weren't able to attend today, we came to you, so here's your packet. You knew you'd be getting it. So if you have any questions about that, you can just ask Matt Curtis. He knows all about that. He'll be able to answer everything. With that being said, I also attended the conference. It seems so long ago, and Sharon and Susan were also in attendance there, and we had 700 board members and superintendents and educators around the state. Miguel Cardona actually was there the whole entire day, and which was great, spoke to the group. So as always, it's a very informative conference, and the day before that, and I'll talk more about that, was we had the delegate assembly, and the delegate assembly is probably one of the most important things we do as Board of Education members, because this is where we set the agenda for the legislative session. So out of probably about 50 or so bills and things that we want to pass forward, submitted by individual boards of educations around the state. We narrowed down to about yesterday, we had a government relations meeting, so we have 4 in particular that we are going to propose. As you know, this is a short year, the second year of the biennium, so we have 4 in particular that we want to bring forward. As many legislators have said, nothing new, because a lot of things have already been out there. Nothing new will come through this year. A lot of bills that were in committees last year will come forward. The 4 things that we are looking at on your behalf, on boards of education through CAVE, is investing in students, supporting schools, including shared services, attracting, retraining quality educators from diverse backgrounds, and supporting educator effectiveness for all students. And in that particular one, we want to invest in programs that promote cultural competency. This has been the big area of discussion that we had all through the conference today and also going forward. So those are the things that is, if you're really interested in some good reading, I can give you the 2020 state agenda that you can look at. But there are just some others that are going to be coming forward, that we are proposing through CAVE, but we've got some areas in bullying, we've got some areas in playground, we've got a few other areas that are still going to be coming forward. You thought that they may have gone away last year or 2 years ago. They are not. They are just going to come forward from the committees, and as a short year, we start in February and we'll be done in May. So it's not a lot of time to get as much as we want to get done, or we hope to get done.
New bullying legislation? Is that what they're talking about?
They're going to continue on some legislation that didn't get passed out of committees last year. They're
Okay.
going to bring forward. So there are still in each of the committees, in particular Edu Committee, there are some areas, there's about 5 or 6 areas that they're going to bring pieces forward. Does not mean they're going to pass this year,
Right.
but out of committees, they're going to bring them forward to the full legislature. So we will be there, again, we will be there testifying on the areas that we feel are important, that we want to concentrate on, or we want the legislator to concentrate on to go forward before May is over. So it's a pretty cut and dry legislative year, but that's what we're faced with. On the CREC end, we started our legislative committee, or we have started, so again, we're going to work in tandem with CABE to move forward in a legislative agenda on behalf of the rest in the same portion. So we're in a real tight timeline. Our day on the Hill is on March 11th, Wednesday, March 11th. So we're really kind of comprising a lot of what we need to get done. So that's where we are with this. So it's going to be moving pretty fast, pretty fluid, but we hope that the legislature this year and the governor will be able to continue supporting education, if not so more in the future. With that being said, I almost forgot, you'll be very proud, I'm very proud of my Board of Education. At the CABE CAPS Conference, we received for the 10th year in the row, the CABE Board of Education Board of Distinction Award. I hope those at home can also see this. And this is for high standards, dedication, teamwork. We have another little...
I asked Cabe to put a frame on it, 10 years. Dress that up a little bit.
Well, maybe if you came and asked them, we might use it.
Our plaque's in the corner.
The plaque is in the corner, but that's okay, Mr. Curtis. And, and the best part is because of that, you are entitled, Simsbury Board of Ed is entitled one free CABE workshop for any Board of Education member that is interested in attending, and as a recipient of the Level 2 CABE Board of Distinction Board of Education Award. So I will pass this on to you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you.
You can hang that,
All right.
hang that little plaque very distinctly, and you can, might buy a frame for those paper.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Say something, Tom.
I got nothing.
Want something to say, Tom?
I'm okay, thanks.
Just briefly, since this is the first meeting since our public forum, I just wanted to spend a second or a minute on that. First, thanks to everybody who attended, on the board, administration, the staff, as well as our partners at the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. I think it's important to remember that we're going through this entire exercise from a directive from the Board of Finance. It's funny, after that, a couple of my friends, I think, were concerned about my mental well-being a little bit. Because, it was pretty lively and raucous, right? But I told them it couldn't be further from the truth, right? We have the opportunity to shape the schools in our town for potentially the next 100 years. That shouldn't go smoothly. That shouldn't, we need that energy. We need that input from the town. So I was, quite frankly, I was energized by it. That was fantastic feedback we received, and we're going to move forward with that. So we heard, just again quickly, we heard from the plan itself, but obviously, we heard a lot about transparency and communication. And just so everybody knows, we are working on those plans now. We're gonna the Facilities and Enrollment Task Force. We're gonna have a few meetings starting right after the new year. Our Tecton friends are going back and working through new options, as we talked about at the forum itself. And I think you're gonna see a lot more communication in various ways, because it's about, I think we're at the point where one mode of communication doesn't really work a lot, and this is not just, I think it's in a lot of our aspects of our lives. So we're going to be working with the PTOs, we're going to be working with the schools, you're going to see different forms, I think, of communications to sort of hit at that issue too. So I don't know about you folks, but I'm very excited about where we're moving, and you're going to see a lot more coming out right after the first of the year.
We sat with Jeff from Tecton today, and he has created a draft of a really detailed milestone chart with a series of public input sessions, series of facilities and enrollment task force meetings, and individual school meetings. And I've talked to some various board members about this. I think a little more push out to individual communities in terms of FaceTime will help with this work, because different communities have different interests based on the feel of their school and input that they want to give. So I think his draft plan looked really good. I had an opportunity to meet with John Nagy, who's the head of the Terrafil Association. We're going to take this same presentation that Jeff and I got today and meet with his kind of board group a little bit, just to talk to them about what those next steps are going to be in an effort to get this off and running after the new year, as Jeff said. So I felt pretty good about it.
It's really good.
And I just did one more thing, is that there'll also be a couple of surveys in there. Right. And we heard that on the forum too, so I'm really excited that we've got that in the master plan, so.
But just to reiterate, this is going to go townwide, not just Terrafil. We're looking for input from everybody.
All over town.
Yes.
Not,
It's the whole community.
right, just to reiterate that.
Yep.
And to also make a point that everyone needs to be checking the website, because we'll keep the website updated. We'll have all of this information that we're talking about tonight on the website, so,
Particularly the facilities and
the
enrollment tab,
dates
which is
and-
right
yeah.
across the top.
so. It's great. It's a townwide
It's big work.
adventure. It's
I think it's
Been
good.
great. People have
Feedback's important.
people have spent a lot of time putting really thoughtful messages to each of us.
yeah, getting the letters are good.
That information really helps.
It's very helpful.
And I think the consistency of we're engaged in this because we have a real challenge to solve, and that doesn't go away. And the challenge are the aging buildings and a significant increase that's coming quicker than we thought it would with the elementary school enrollment, particularly on the south end of town. So,
But I think
really focusing our conversation on that will be helpful.
Being
I think
proactive.
the changes that you've shared, I think, they'll help the community know that we've heard them.
Yes.
And I think that's
Absolutely.
what's important.
100%.
Right, and I think once we finalize this plan, you're gonna, if nothing else, you're hopefully, gosh, if you don't walk away with that feeling, we've really done something.
That's
wrong.
right.
And also, we also have to remind people that we do send out letters to the town explaining what we're doing here. And it would be great if people, they're there, we do mail them to your homes, hoping that you take a look at them.
You're referring to the communicator.
Communicator.
Which is a joint letter from the town and the school board.
Correct.
So
No, the
that we-
communicator's just the.
Oh, is
Communicator's
that
just
just the
us.
school board?
Yeah.
What's the joint one that goes out? Just the budget.
But that's just the budget, so, but
Okay,
we do the communicator
is ours.
twice
That's
a year.
Snail mail, townwide.
Snail mail
That'll
townwide.
be going out beginning of January too, with this milestone chart on it.
That's
So,
great.
Yep.
Yes.
Take a look. Thank you very much, thanks for the update.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll keep it coming. Mrs. Lemke,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Sullivan.
Just to revisit where we are with our contracts for teachers and administrators that were settled tentatively at the end of October and then approved by your board in November. With teachers and administrators only, there's a final step where those contracts have to appear in front of the Board of Selectmen. So that happened last Thursday night with a summary of the contract settlements, and I am pleased to report that the Board of Selectmen also approved the contract, so we are done with that process and
Great.
drafting the new documents, and we'll be, signing them at the start of the new year. So excited about that. And then just wanted to note at our last board meeting of the year that as we head to vacation next week, that also marks the official retirement of our supervisor of buildings and grounds for over 20 years, Steve Twitchell, who has helped with the transition of Andrew O'Brien into our Director of Operations role. And Steve has been a great steward in working with our custodial staff and taking care of 7 buildings that are aging, as we've talked about, and I think a lot of that study has said we've gotten the most out of them, and a lot of that is thanks to Steve. We had a great retirement party with everybody in Steve's family was able to make it a few weeks ago
Nice.
over at Hot Meadow Country Club, and a great combination of his work friends and his family. And congratulations to Steve. I know he's really looking forward to some quieter times.
Steve has definitely got a passion for our community and our schools that it's hard to beat. We were very lucky to have him for so long.
So tomorrow, depending on weather, it is scheduled as a early release day. It is a building-based day. So principals have designed opportunities, professional learning opportunities for all of their teachers, and it ranges from equity to vision of the graduate work to effective instructional practices in the classroom. So if we do have a delay, if the weather brings that in, then we will have a full day of school and that will be canceled. So let's hope for no snow.
Let's hope for no snow.
Does it get rescheduled or?
We have another date in January that would then get, that we would use, but we're not going to put another early release in between now and then.
I also, I wanted to get back to Neil, I forgot, but I do want to say thank you to everyone who was part of getting that all ratified and signed, because the people on this committee, on this board who were on the committee to work on that, spent hours and hours and hours, and we really appreciate all the work that's been done and the work from all of you as well. So thank you. Really helps. Mr. Curtis?
I would just say our boys football team had a great run.
Yes, they did.
A great run for the community. First time to get to a playoff game in Double L since this new format, and they lost a tough one last night to Newtown, who's going to the finals. But it's been really interesting to watch that program grow in numbers, in interest, and in following, and in talent over the past several years. I mean, you go to a football game now, and there is a lot of the community out. And it's nice to see how that has played out. So congratulations to Coach Masters, his team, and
Absolutely.
The boys and the family, because families do a lot to help out.
The families are very important, and the Gridiron Club makes it happen for sure. Thank you to them. Excellent.
That's it.
Moving on, the minutes of November 12th. Has everyone looked at them? Anyone have any questions, changes, or thoughts?
Move to approve.
Thank you very much. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the approval of the 2020 Board of Education meeting schedule. So, has everyone looked at this? This came in your, over the email. Has everyone any questions, thoughts, or concerns?
I just had a question. Can we make changes to it once we approve it? Okay, that was my only, because I'm wondering if we talk about location changes going forward for any of the meetings.
Those would have to be, a location change is probably
Right.
okay.
Not a date
Location.
change, just a location change.
Because we had some conversation.
About
and
having them in
feedback
more in
again
class.
at the
Yeah.
push out, and I think that might, and that's a coordination with SCTV that I think maybe I could just go back and have some conversations with them
And the
about
PTO.
And
challenges and different, and what that is, but, so why don't we work on that?
I just
Yeah,
wanted to make
I
sure
think
if we
that'd be a good
approve
thing.
it tonight, we could still make those changes rolling forward. Okay.
Any other questions? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move.
Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Do you have a question?
yes.
Okay, well, we all eyed it, but Sharon, give me your question.
So I don't have a problem with the dates. I have a problem with the time.
Oh, okay, so, I know, I talked to everybody, and you said you could make 6:30, but if you want to change the time, that would have to be a whole nother conversation.
I'm not sure it's going to change because of me. I'm just saying that that's where my challenge is. I can agree, I would vote on the dates, but the time I would nay. So I don't know how we're going to set up the motion.
Okay. So, we made a motion and we approved it. So I think that would have to be a conversation for a second. We'll talk about it and bring it up
At another meeting.
at another meeting with you, Sue. So we'll talk about that going forward.
Can I make a friendly amendment to table the motion for another time?
Or do we have
need
to
my
approve
Robert's
a
rules.
schedule, do we not?
By the end of January.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can talk about it by the end of January. So we need to make a motion to table the previous motion.
For discussion purposes?
I mean, I'm not sure because you.
We did aye.
We already are.
We did.
So why don't we-
I
That
we
doesn't
didn't-
mean you can't have an amended motion at the next meeting.
Yes, let's look
I
into
just,
it.
I won't file with the town clerk.
Right.
Okay,
I didn't
thank
think, I didn't think we officially, well.
I said all those in favor and people did say aye. I didn't say anyone opposed. So I can say anyone opposed, and we got a nay. And we can talk about this, and we could potentially amend it at our next meeting. So, sorry about that. Your question?
So there's questioning, right? Because our next meeting is January 14th.
Right.
And what time would we show up?
No, we'd have to have the discussion at the meeting.
So what?
That
Time
meeting
would
would
Oh,
start
the
at-
meeting
that meeting would
start at 6:30.
Okay.
That meeting starts at 6:30 in January.
And then we roll forward from there.
And then we can have
Then
the
we have the discussion after that.
Okay.
All right. Our next action is election of Board of Education officers. Board of Education officers serve for terms of 2 years and can serve in 2 consecutive terms. And the officers currently sitting on the board have served in those 2 terms consecutively. So it is time, we are going to, at this point in time, we will be electing new officers to move forward. And we will start with the secretary. And I would like to open the floor to nominations for the secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education. Are there any nominations?
I would move that Jennifer Batchelor be nominated to Secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those, do we do that now? Close, then I close the nominations for secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
No. You need to vote. No, you need to vote.
Now we need to vote. So I close the
Before you
nominations.
close.
We have to vote
Oh,
on the
and-
nomination.
Closes the nominations.
Because there could be multiple, so you're voting.
You're voting.
on
Right,
Jen.
yeah. We asked if there are further nominations. There are not. So I am closing the nominations for secretary of the board of the Simsbury Board of Education. And then we will,
Tara, we need to vote after Brian's second.
Brian second.
oh, we voted to make.
Second, no.
I think you should fire me. It's so close. Are you close to firing me? So close. Oh, my. Foolproof. I don't like foolproof. Okay.
You need to red.
What am I missing here?
Go up.
Okay, all those in favor
on the
of Jen
nomination.
Batchelor as secretary of the Board of Education?
On the nomination.
All those in favor of the nomination of Jen Batchelor for the Board of Education Secretary?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, any further nominations? I move to close, I'm closing the nominations for Simsbury, Secretary of Simsbury Board of Education.
All right. I would like to move that Jennifer Batchelor be elected as Secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
All those in favor of Jen Batchelor being the Secretary for the Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It moves, congratulations. Here we go, we got this time. Yeah, it's so easy. I'm requesting to open the floor for nominations for Vice Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I would like to move that Todd Burek be nominated for Vice Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
All those in favor of nominating Todd Burke for the Vice Chairmanship of the Simsbury Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I would like to, are there further nominations? Seeing none, I will close the nominations for Vice Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education. And I would be open to a motion.
I'd like to move that Todd Bjork be elected as Vice Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I second.
All those in favor of Todd Berg being Vice Chair of the Board of Education? All those opposed? All right, so moved. Now, this is the good one. Saying, this is my happy. I would like to open the floor for nominations for Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
With great pride and honor, I would like to move that Susan Selena be nominated for the Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
And with great honor, I'd like to second that.
All those in favor of Sue Selena being a nominee for the Chair of the Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
Just wanted to see if you guys were listening.
That is not
on the
available.
script.
That's not an option. That is not an option.
Not an option.
Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, I close the floor to nominations for the Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education. Jen?
I would like to move that Susan Selena be elected as chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I'll second.
All those in favor of Sue Selena being Chair of the Board of Education?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Passing of the gavel.
Point of order, Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, Miss Lydia.
You love it.
That's right, she's in.
So, before you officially take the gavel as your position of the next chair of the City Board of Education, we, the Board of Education, Tara, if you please stand. And so we have members of Tara's family here and also Susan's family here, and we have such a lovely, great public audience here, all the members and to those homes. So this is a really special time, and especially for me as a previous chair, and giving something to you on behalf of the Board of Education. So Tara, we thank you for the years of service, the gratitude, as many of you know, and if those of you that do not know, especially in the public audience and at home, Tara is a lifelong resident of Simsbury. She is a graduate of Central School, Henry James School, and Simsbury High School, and her family resides in Simsbury. Her family resides, it's time for me to go home.
I'm telling you all of them.
Her family resides here. She has many roots here in Simsbury. So it was an honor when Chair Tara took over after me to become chair, and I hope I taught you well in the years that I was chair before you. But we on the Board of Education appreciate all the service and that you have given to the town of Simsbury in numerous roles, in particularly in the role as chair on the Board of Education and the years preceding that. You will be leaving as chair, but we are still very happy and honored that you'll be joining us at the other end of the table, but also as a continuing member of the Simsbury Board of Education. Simsbury students, faculty, staff, constituents, residents are very, very well off because of you and because of your tenure through the years, and we can't thank you and honor you enough. So with that being said, can you introduce your members of your family that are here?
My daughter Maeve, who is a senior, and my husband Jay, who I dragged from Avon to live in Simsbury.
The truth be told. So anyway,
No, he lived on the side for it.
So with that, and so with that, I'm calling you Susan. With that, Tara,
She's here, and she's staying.
You're here. You're here for a few years. So
Yeah.
with that, this is a token of our appreciation for all that you've done for the town of Simsbury and the district of Simsbury, and also for us. You've made the town a richer place, you've made the district a richer place, and most importantly, you've made all of us board members, past and present, a richer place to be and a richer person to have known you. So
It's very kind of you.
This is for you.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say. Thank you very much. It's been my great pleasure and joy to be on this team. This is an amazing board. Everyone works really hard and cares very deeply for the town of Simsbury and the students, and it makes it so important and so easy to be here. And everyone, all of our administrative council has been so supportive and so kind and so helpful, and I've learned so much from all of you, and I am just thrilled that I had this opportunity. It's just been great. And as always, I love my school, I love my teachers and kids. So I can't thank you all enough for.
While you're opening that,
Yeah.
I just want to say, as superintendent, and Lydia, you know, as a former board chair, that relationship you work with that board chair is so important. And I appreciate, excuse me, your insights, your honesty, your work ethic, and you've really helped to make me a better superintendent, and I've really enjoyed that relationship. And I feel like I'm getting old. I'm moving on to my third board chair. Susan, who was back in the PTO days at Project Alignment. So it's very exciting.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Very nice.
Very nice.
I went to school here, K through 4 people.
I know.
My school. I spent a lot of time here now that I think about it.
Their building will not let go of you.
No.
Tara.
Very nice.
Thank you. This is
Look,
beautiful.
it's signed on the back.
So Susan, oh my goodness, how quickly we forget of you.
And everyone signed the back.
So
Thank you
everyone
very
sign
much.
the back, and those that have not signed them.
Has plenty of opportunity. You have plenty of opportunity and space.
Well, Tara, we hope that hangs in a very proud place in your home as.
Thank you very much.
As you remember your tenure and your years of service here.
Oh,
and
it's
us.
beautiful. Thank you very, very much.
All right. There you go.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Here you go.
All right,
Get on that
all right. Now we
get
gotta
on
look
that
at the agenda. All right. So, God help you all. Just ask Tom. All right, so now, moving on to information and reports, we have an equity update.
Perfect. So, why don't we go to the first slide, Sue? I'm going to introduce this report tonight, and I know that Sue is going to take a piece of it, and Aaron is going to speak to the curricular portion of our work as well. So, in terms of an overview, just want to hit on a couple points. I'm not going to read all the information on the slide, certainly for you, but everything starts in our district in terms of accountability and the work with our strategic plan. So we're going to start a little bit there in a moment, and Sue is going to update us on the work of our Equity Council, which is work that several of our board members have participated with as well. So it'll be interesting to get their input and feedback as we go through the evening as well. As I mentioned, Aaron will talk through the curriculum a little bit. We've put a document together with our principals that demonstrates some of the grassroots initial year work that they're involved with at each school level. That is in your folder. We'll be referring to that. And then the community work of the Spirit Council will receive an update on that as well. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of where we're going. We put the Board of Education goals back up in front of the board and for the audience at home this evening because, as I've mentioned many times, you know, the backbone of what we do here in continuous improvement work is relative to our strategic plan. And we had an opportunity last year, this board, to really engage in a great process around strategic planning and came up with a newer look, a newer format in terms of a more of a innovation configuration, so to speak, with our Board of Education goals. But these are our 4 goal areas. And for work to be successful in the Simsbury Public Schools, for people to feel accountable to the work, it needs to fit within this system of continuous improvement. So I feel that the bones of this plan and the format of this plan around the goals are really set up for us to be successful with work around equity, with work in our vision of the graduate competencies. So our goal on student growth and success, for an example, will really help us to get at some of the achievement gap work. Compassion and connected school culture is really the climate of our schools, the safety and security of our schools, and professional development. And then the premier workforce. Neil reported out early in the year, one of the actionable items we have is to improve our efforts and increase our percentage of minority hires in the district. So I feel like we have a great entranceway into the equity work here in our district. This second slide is really a visual that encapsulates that. We put it in front of the board last year when we initiated our efforts. It has that goal 2, caring and compassionate school culture at the center. And what we talk about in our meetings is that it's really about meaningful relationships and establishing that that safe and healthy environment within our schools. So Sue will be talking to some of the information that's in those different circles tonight, and we're looking forward to your input as we move forward. Sue?
Great. So the first update that I want to provide the board is just the work of the Equity Council since its inception at the beginning of the school year. So in your folders, you'll see a document that should look familiar, and that's the Equity Council one-pager. It's kind of the guiding coalition, which goes into great detail about purpose, how we determined membership, and the overall goals of Equity Council. But it really boils down to this purpose. The purpose of Equity Council is to come together to assess in a variety of ways, looking at data from a number of different sources. What are the organizational issues within the public schools that might impact access and overall success relative to equity? And not only assess those organizational issues, but also provide recommendations to Matt, who would then bring to this board for consideration more of the organizational impact, so we make sure that we have equitable experiences, most importantly for our students, but also for our adults. So that's really the purpose of Equity Council boiled down. The membership of Equity Council, I just want to remind the board that we are partnering with the Center of School Change. We have 2 facilitators. Their names are Patrice Nelson and Carrie Lord, and they help us in really determining the objectives and the learning targets for each one of our Equity Council meetings, but also looking to that big picture movement of how do we address some of the issues of equity that we're facing in the Simsbury Public Schools. We also have a number of board members. Certainly Tara, Todd, and Sharon have been a part of that work. And again, at any time, board members, feel free to chime in any additional commentary that you think would be helpful. For administration, Matt, myself, Aaron, and then Maggie Seidel, principal of Tooten Hills, as well as Georgia Robert, assistant principal of the high school, sit on Equity Council. We have a number of teachers, community members, Deacon Art Miller and Reverend Kevin Weichel from Center Congregational Church here in Simsbury, who sit on Equity Council. Many parents, many students, our very own Kayla Huey is a member of Equity Council. So a really robust and diverse membership, and we get at it through our equity meetings. So a typical meeting format, we always start off with a chat and chew. So I'll give you an example of what a chat and chew is in a moment. Then we always delve into what we call a triple E. It has nothing to do with the mosquitoes. An experience to explore equity. And this is really some sort of activity that deepens our understanding, our thoughts, in developing the lens of equity in which we look at issues that may be impacting the Simsbury Public Schools. We always have targeted objectives for the meeting that I'll go over in a moment. And we have an opportunity for a parking lot. So if something comes up that's very robust that we want to come back to, but we don't want that to sideline our objectives for the evening, we put it in a parking lot. So there's this circular and ever-evolving topics that we want to make sure that we tackle.
Can I just add something?
Please, Todd.
So, I missed some of the meetings, but in the one that I went to, these meetings are very different from any other meetings that I've been involved with here, in that we can go in and we can say, okay, what do we need to get done and get it done? But the way these meetings are set up and the facilitators, most of the time is to understand what you're doing there. And what issues we're trying to work with, to deal with, to solve, instead of just going in, getting something down on paper and leaving. Really come out with a better understanding of what we're all doing here and what our goal is together. They do a fantastic job, and the setup is great, and it's a great model for other things.
Thank you. So here's an example of two past chat and chews. So we usually, our meetings are 2.5 hours long. I have to say it's the quickest 2.5 hour meeting that I continue to experience. And I think so much of that has to do with the dialogue that we're having, the relationships that we're building in a very intentional way. So one of the first chat and chews was, please come in, grab something for dinner and sit down with someone that you don't know. And here was the first question: why did you say yes to Equity Council? You know, what's part of your individual story that brings you here? Why are you passionate about that work? The second was around kind of current events, specifically in Connecticut, and how they highlight the importance for us having not only dialogue, but eventual decisions and actions around issues of equity and implications for the Simsbury Public Schools. So meeting accomplishments, boy, that came up in a really wonky way. Didn't look like that earlier. Must have been something around the formatting. So I'll just kind of go through this. In September, it was really establishing our purpose and the why. We looked at that one pager that the board has again in their folders. We talked about common vocabulary. There's a lot of words that we use relative to equity. And getting a handle about what do we mean? Our words are important, and some of those words are very nuanced. So having an exploration of that and really just setting norms and goals. These are groups of individuals that have never come together before, and how do we go about the business so we can make sure that we meet our targeted objectives. In October, we talked about why do we look at all of these issues through a lens of equity? What does that mean? How do we look at situations differently? How do we determine whose voice is at the table of decisions, whose isn't, and what implications does that have? We looked at a video for our experience to explore equity. It was a video of a counter narrative of a journalist and how she kind of looked at different headlines in the New York Times and pictures and kind of changed the narrative just by changing around some of those words and headlines. So that was really interesting. And then we started delving into our statement of equity, which really has 3 parts. First of all, a definition of what do we mean when we talk about equity in the Simsbury Public Schools? What are our core beliefs around that, what that means? And starting to develop the concept of stance. What actions are we going to say that are imperatively important to the work of moving equity forward here in the Simsbury Public Schools? Then in November, we came back to, okay, we've had these 2 meetings. Let's look at the parking lot and what are issues that remain to be important, kind of, again, communicating that feedback loop. We looked at a very powerful excerpt of an art exhibit that's actually still continuing at the Wadsworth Athenaeum until mid-January. So I encourage all of the board members and the public to go and see that art display. And we continued with our equity definition, because what we found from our October meeting is that we were working quickly, but we wanted to be more intentional. Going okay, let's kind of take a step and pause, because what we're doing here is we are building the foundation from which we will come back to and kind of check ourselves when we are assessing, again, getting back to our purpose and making recommendations to Matt and then the Board of Education. So that was our work in November. As far as looking ahead to December and January, there is a group that's actually getting together Thursday to put final touches on our definition of equity. So we will kind of come back and take a look at that in December, really delve into the core beliefs and stance, again, kind of moving ahead a little bit slower because we want to be so intentional. And then in January, we'll start looking at very specific data relative to Simsbury, to our students, around achievement and performance and access. And from there, I think we'll really develop some additional action steps. So in 3 meetings, I think we've accomplished a lot. And what I'm energized about is the plans that we have moving forward and moving ahead.
So before we jump into the curriculum piece, I would just say one thing I'm excited about and being a part of it and seeing how it evolves. Once we have that definition and we have that stance, I think we have a very unique and powerful opportunity to pull everybody in, board into, okay, where does that now sit in our actually and live in our actual document? Do the same with our administrative council and really start to build that common language in those focal points. Because you'll see, we've made, I believe, some nice progress and have some really solid work going on at each of the schools, but it's kind of moving in two places right now, right? It's moving up above kind of theoretically, and it's moving in a grassroots standpoint. I think we'll have a nice opportunity to really tie it out in the next month and a half or so.
Focus on
I think
items,
so.
Agreed.
actions.
Now, another major component of our work here with equity is the curriculum. What does that look like? What is the content in which we're teaching? So Erin's going to touch upon that now.
So I think
So
Sharon has
before we
something.
do that.
Oh, I'm
so-
sorry, Sharon.
No worries. This will be quick. So one of the things I did want to say is I was appreciative as a member of the team that I think a number of us earlier on were having some angst about the pace in which we were going, and that folks heard us. I mean, I think it was really important because I think around the table, around the room, there was a desire to have deeper discussions around some of the words and in those areas in which people were kind of getting hung up because it was uncomfortable and it was new, and I was really appreciative that we were heard because we were parking lotting that as an item, And then the other thing, Matt, I'm glad to hear is that the approach that we'll take to try to bring it together, because even before I came on the board, there was work that was being done in the school, and I think it's important that we knit that together so that folks can see the full picture, and then we'll have a way to hopefully measure.
Right.
And Sharon, I think to that point, that tapestry of coming together really comes back to the strategic plan.
Yes.
And what are the very specific action steps that we say that we are going to take over the course of the 5 years?
Yes.
Right? So between that, between our equity definition that involves that statement and stance and core beliefs, I think it's going to knit together beautifully. So thank you for that.
And lastly, I think for the audience and those who are watching, I think we are being very intentional about what we're doing. And I think we all understand that it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. And so I think it's important that we continue to report out and let the audience and everyone else know what it is that we're doing, and so that they can actively see the progress that we're making, but know that we're not rushing through this,
You have to do it thoughtfully.
Yeah, we
Thoughtfully,
have to do it
takes time,
thoughtfully.
and it takes
That's right.
specific.
That's right.
Right. This isn't about checking the box.
That's
This
right.
is looking about at the organization and about the systems.
That's right.
Erin?
So as you think about the work around equity, curriculum really drives the work that happens in our K-12 classrooms. So we wanted to, as we launched the new strategic plan with the equity that was embedded throughout, student growth and success, and the goal number 2 as well, we wanted to ensure that we were building the literacy and the understanding of our teachers as we were beginning to look into our curriculum documents to update them as well. So our major focus as we look at our vision of the graduate work as well, it's so intertwined, this work between equity and the vision of the graduate, are supporting attributes to the global citizen. As you look at those, that was the area that we said that we would highlight our work this year around building our knowledge and literacy. And so equity really falls closely into this. So as you go to the next slide, Sue, in June, we held a curriculum committee where we had about 60 teachers that participated that were beginning to embark on writing curriculum units and embed vision of the graduate, but equity as well. And in your folder, you have 2 documents. The one document that we were looking at is that curriculum checklist. And again, this was a draft that was put forward. This was something that was meant to provide teachers a guideline in which to follow. We knew the Equity Council was coming forward in the fall. We weren't looking to try to work too fast beyond that, but to say, let's begin to build our knowledge. And once that comes together, that's where it's all going to, as Sharon, we talk about, bring it together, because we need to build our literacy, but teachers need to build their literacy to understand it in the classroom, to be able to engage the students in the learning as well. So not only did they use that checklist, but the vision of the graduate. We've worked really hard to look at our classroom libraries at our elementary schools, to look at what the diversity is around those, build that into our curriculum units as well, not only at the elementary, but at the middle school and at the high school as well. We're looking at that. The other piece that I had given you, if you go to the next slide there, what we did know, this was one of the slides that was used in June when all of our writers got together, is that we felt that our curriculum really needs to be much more articulate about how we can build these global citizens, but within that falls the equity and the vision of the graduate and all the other competencies that we're looking for. So what we wanted to ensure is that we were helping our teachers better understand it so that they could then write curriculum and identify opportunities, learning opportunities that would engage students in lessons all the way from kindergarten through high school to build this knowledge and understanding. And one of the other documents that you have in your folder, I was able to go in and cut and paste some of the understandings and essential questions that teachers began to build into their units. This is a digital library that we use to write our curriculum, and so you can see through some of these examples, whether it's in social studies or English or art, that there are ways in which we're looking to really help students better understand issues around race and building relationships amongst each other and better understanding who people are. So we're really pushing this and building the understanding of our teachers so that they can build robust curriculum in order to teach in the classrooms.
This is right out of EduPlanet?
This is right out of EduPlanet. I just cut and pasted it for you, but there's a lot there. But I think there's some key examples that show you how teachers are thinking. The understandings are teacher language, the essential questions are student language. And that's the essential questions are things that you could see in the classroom, on a board, or, but the understandings are what teachers are trying to really help themselves better understand as they're engaging students in different learning opportunities.
I love your curriculum checklist.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Points in there. It's such a good way to look at it all.
Yes.
It's a really helpful tool. So when we're talking about building our equity lens, right, sometimes it's looking at our documents, like our curriculum, and asking ourselves tough questions around, again, who's reflected, what's the context. So those powerful questions are also very user-friendly to the practitioner.
And what's so nice about this opportunity in curriculum writing in this digital format that we're using is that it's live. And so when teachers teach, they can talk about what they're going to teach before they teach it. They teach it, whether it takes a week or 2 weeks or 5 weeks, they can go back and update what worked, what didn't work, and rearrange some of the language as necessary. So this is a long process. This is a journey. This is not something that's going to get checked off and done. We're working hard at it. Right now, we have about 100 users. Our goal is by the end of our 5-year plan is to have every certified teacher on EduPlanet, and every teacher then would be able to see curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade. So if I'm a 5th grade teacher and I want to know what they're doing in 8th grade, I could actually look at some of those documents. So that's our goal. It's going to take us time, but we have to do it in a way that's going to build literacy and understanding along the way.
Can I ask?
Sure.
So I'd like to ask Kayla a question. So Kayla has participated and she's been part of our Equity Council, but as a student, I'd like you to share how you may feel, based on the work that has been going on. And I know the work that you're a part of, but being a student in the school, how do you feel things are going?
In terms of the curriculum
The curriculum, the climate in the school, folks talking.
I think that I think there's definitely been a huge change from just this year to last year. There's been, I think, more of an awareness between like students and even in teachers. I think the meetings that we had for like with Recenter kind of opened people's eyes and made them sort of develop a want to learn more about, like it says here, like individuality or social acceptance, like becoming like your own person, or like what you should, like social norms in the school. And I think that the curriculum, I mean, it hasn't changed obviously because that takes time, but I think that the conversations that we have in the classroom definitely have changed and have become more like diverse, and people are just a little more open-minded, and I think that's been a really noticeable difference just between this year and last year.
Josh, would you agree?
I do agree. I think there's more of an emphasis this year, both from the student body and the teachers, how we approach the things that are taught in class. And a lot of the commentary that I've heard, at least in our class body, is kind of become more aware of a rather Eurocentric curriculum that's being taught. And we're open to learning more perspectives, and we find the value in those constructive conversations.
Great. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
So I'll bring the board back to their folders one more time. There is a document that looks like this, building-based equity work. So during our time together this summer, which is so important for administrative planning, we, again, brought our administrators back to our strategic plan, specifically around the goals of achievement, around the goals of culture, and said, okay, relative to equity and the global citizen, because we said that's where we needed the work, what do you want your building focus to be? And this document, I think, is a great reference to say, what are all the 7 schools getting at this year specifically in their conversations, adult to adult, adult to student, student to student, and what does that look like? So you'll see some clear themes around professional development, so I'll comment on that in a little bit. I do, and Kayla, thank you so much for kind of opening the topic around the Recenter. The board may recall that the high school had been partnering with the Recenter, and over the course of last spring, every student participated in a mandatory dialogue and small circles and conversations. And from those dialogues came specific themes, and then students, Kayla is one of those students, worked to develop some specific action plans of steps they wanted to take relative to continuing those dialogues and looking at some issues that really impacted the school culture. So that kind of analysis and work is being done through these focus areas at each school. Kayla, I don't know if you want to say any more about the Recenter. I also know that the Diversity Club has also been reignited at the high school. Anything else that you want to touch upon that we haven't there?
I am not a part of the Diversity Club, but just about the Recenter, we have been we're starting up our meetings again, and we're getting together just talking about things that we want to accomplish this year. So we're aiming to kind of, now that we've introduced it to everyone, make this more of a continuous thing that happens and not just a one and done. So we want to continue the education process of the teachers and the students, and make sure that these conversations are promoted not just by the Recenter groups, but by the teachers in each classroom, that when students have questions, they're not shut down. When teachers have questions, they're not shut down, and that everyone is just given a place to let their voice be heard. So that's kind of our goals for this year.
Thank you very much there. So
Can you tell us what the Diversity Club, anybody, does at the high school? Do you know?
I think they're kind of looking at where do they kind of fit in all this. I know that they want to do some specific event focused opportunities for students, more of those opt-in opportunities of celebration, of broadening an equity lens. You know, if you think about with the Equity Council, those experiences to explore equity, but more in these kind of opt-in opportunities. I would say that's where they're at right now, but certainly we can provide any updates to
Some
the
like
board.
performances and assemblies too, they're looking into
Let's ask you a question on this, the building-based equity work.
Sure.
You have a wide range here, right? You've got some schools that have just offered up 3, someone that's offered up 7. Is there anything to kind of read into?
I wouldn't say this is about quantity of bullets or anything like that, right? It's around how are the buildings making the best sense of the work, using their leadership teams, using their student leaders, and quite frankly, teacher passions around going deeper. I think at the end of the day, the major theme is around professional development. And we're not just saying, okay, this is a one and done 3-hour, okay, we explored equity, right? There is a commitment that is grounded in our strategic plan work that is very much a focus of each and every building here in Simsbury.
That was
Todd?
actually one of my question was similar because, you know, I get the high school, the middle school, and then each elementary school has their own kind of personality, their own kind of population, but I don't see any common themes. Well, it is a common theme, but specific. You know, is there something that each one of these elementary schools is doing the same?
Yes.
Because these guys are all going to go to the junior high where everything is. I don't see that.
That's a great segue. I'll actually get to that.
Okay.
One of the last aspects that I'll share with the board is the agreed upon kind of professional development that all will be engaging in throughout this experience. So where do you have the mandatory, like, hey, we want everyone to have this one experience, but also the opportunity to individualize some of this based upon where people are at individually and collectively in their buildings.
And I think, Sue, this is an example of a little bit of what I was talking about before. Varied levels of work tied to the strategic plan while the kind of evolution of the district direction is going on up top. And I think that tie out in the future will really help to streamline what you're talking about.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're doing at our elementary principal meeting next week is that all of the principals are putting together the work that they have identified for equity, and we're spending about 2 hours talking about the work that they're doing so that they're hearing from one another and learning around that work as well.
It's great because you want to find out something that's been really successful
Correct.
and make sure that we can
Correct.
implement it somewhere else.
Exactly. Jen, you look like you had a
Yeah,
question.
that's basically what I was going to ask, is that how do they, like, say one thing works really well at Squadron, how do they know? And is there somebody, an individual or something on the equity task force that is representative of all the buildings? Is there individuals?
Nope, that's a great question. So going back to the administrators, we made sure that there was an administrator from the elementary level, and that's Maggie Seidel. So she would be participating in these discussions and bringing that work forward and that voice forward. And then the secondary person is Georgia Robert as an assistant principal. She's been very much a part of the recenter work that's been happening at the high school and some of these organic efforts that have been, kind of evolving as we go forth in this work. So that's how we bring those voices here to the Equity Council.
And then they're sharing
So
the work
she
back
shares
with
that,
their
like, how does it get down to Henry
contemporaries.
James, let's say, that's through your work?
Right.
Okay.
So I have one last question. So I know we talked about measurements and the things that are here are for school year 2019 through 20. So at the end of the school year, which is what, May, June?
June?
Are we expecting that these things will be done or reported out as metrics? How will we know?
So I wouldn't say hard quantitative metrics yet, Sharon,
Okay.
but in terms of their RAP and their continuous improvement plan report, they will report out on all those things.
Okay.
And when we kind of kick off the new school year, you'll get an elementary report
Okay.
on that. I think some of the work that we're going to engage in from the data dive we're going to do at the Equity Council is going to drive what you're talking about in terms of concrete measurables.
Okay.
That will be, I think, consistent across different levels of the district.
Okay.
I think is what we're going for.
All right.
Jen, another point just to your question is that it's really important that we include all administrators in this work. So we've been very strategic on, after we've had equity meetings, that we do equity updates and engage the administrators in many of these exact objectives and activities that we're doing in Equity Council. So we're building capacity of administrators as well, but you can imagine Equity Council is already about 25 people, like adding another 15, right? We want to make the group manageable, and we want to make sure it's a group that can kind of move ahead the work. But please know that there are those feedback mechanisms and that additional kind of development along the way.
Great.
So that's the building-based focus. The other element of equity that I wanted to share was the larger community group, which is called Spirit Council. So you may recall that back in May, we had a very large community conversation that was facilitated by the Department of Justice. So membership of the Spirit Council were really individuals that self-identified, hey, I still want to be a part of this larger Simsbury community discussion. So there are two co-chairs. Those co-chairs are Cheryl Cook and Nicole Kodak. And this just gives you kind of a quick overview on what has been accomplished so far. So in September, Mr. Dion Lyons, who was our Department of Justice facilitator, came back to the Spirit Council and reviewed the final report that was produced by the Department of Justice. And that report really was a summary of the feedback, the discussions, and the themes of the May meeting. So there weren't any specific like Department of Justice recommendations, but it was a compilation of the dialogue that occurred that evening and potential next action steps. So he came back to Spirit Council and reviewed that. I also provided an update to Spirit Council. Very much so. We weren't as evolved, or it wasn't as robust as it is now, because we've had the opportunity to have some meetings in September, October, and November. But I shared with Spirit Council the overall construct of how we're addressing equity, specifically foundationally through our strategic plan. So that occurred in September. We looked at all of the potential actions that were brainstormed at that May meeting. Many of them fell in the category of that is clearly the purview of the Simsbury Public Schools. So we looked at those, kind of took them out and moved them over to the Equity Council purview and said, okay, what's left relative to the greater Simsbury community? So really identified what are some of those potential action steps for the Spirit Council. And it was at that point where we named kind of who the leaders were going to be of that group. In October, we discussed the format, the structure, the organization, right? This is a new group. Currently, it is living as a subcommittee of the Community for Care, of which I am a liaison. And at that October meeting, Chris Kelly, who very much frequents our Board of Ed meetings, facilitated a discussion and really a procedure about how to prioritize next steps for Spirit Council. So that was very helpful, and it was based upon the action steps that were identified in this May meeting. And then we established some subgroups that you'll see there. There was a subgroup that really wanted to work on positive messaging and slogan, having a slogan relative to the greater Simsbury community. There was a group that wanted to work on outreach of organizations that are already very vibrant in this town, and how do we partner relative to issues of equity. There was a group very interested in determining a partner of resource. Is there someone that does community audits around equity? We weren't so sure, so there's a group that was working on that. And finally, one that was very much interested in developing culturally inclusive events here that would be open for the town. So if you recall that first graphic that Matt shared with the 3 circles, it's really important that we keep an awareness of what's going on in the greater Simsbury community, specifically through the Spirit Council. Sharon also sits on Spirit Council as well. I sit on Spirit Council as well to bring those action steps and elements. So we're making sure that we're working in conjunction with and not as separate silos, or certainly people that are kind of overdoing one aspect and underdoing another. So anything else to share there, Sharon?
Oh, I think that's good.
Great. So Todd, coming back to the professional development, right? And what are those opportunities for all faculty and staff? So one of the first was actually our convocation speaker, Deacon Art Miller, who talked about our responsibilities as educators to recognize who is in front of us and the voices in front of us and how we can become even better at that work. Many of you participated in a workshop that Deacon Art facilitated, an extremely dynamic, passionate speaker, and really gets to the core of, remember, we're here for kids. So that was a common experience. In November, some of you also participated in this, that the Commissioner Miguel Cardona, who Lydia referenced earlier in Board of Ed Communications, came and was our guest speaker at our full day equity conference, our full day PD, really speaking to the concepts of global citizenship and equity, which are very much a part of the Department of Connecticut, of the education in Connecticut, of their platform. We also have had opportunities for our faculty and staff to participate in leadership institutes that CREC has sponsored. Many of us have also participated in a parent panel that Open Choice provides the opportunity for districts all over to come and hear from a parent perspective how we can do better in our work. Many teachers have also participated in a recent conference around Sarah Ahmed. She is the author of the book Being the Change, which how do we bring the focus of equity in our work at the classroom level, and what does that mean through our relationships, through curriculum, and through our teach. And so Matt alluded to upcoming this professional opportunity. I think it's really going to center around our equity statement. So once we've fully developed that foundation of that equity statement, of that definition, those core beliefs, the stance, how do we unroll that to every member of the Simsbury Public Schools community? So there is no question that this is the foundation from which we move forward.
So for PD in November, I actually attended PD, which was great to do that. But one of the things I talked about before was asking, because we gave teachers an opportunity to select some of the race, and the, what do we call them? RE, I don't think it was a D, diversity. Some of the workshops that focused on
global citizen, equity.
On equity, but they was given another acronym, the three letters that we,
right.
So, but is there a way for us, and I had asked then, is there a way for us to be able to look at how many of the teachers chose those over time? Because that would be a good stat to actually have. And I don't know if we have that. Okay.
We do.
Okay. And then to be able to see over time if it's a different group or the same group
We have
teaching.
that, right,
I mean,
right.
looking for those classes.
And we were able to collect at the end of that November day, we have, and really the responses and the feedback that teachers gave were really quite positive around all of the various opportunities that were made available to them. But we can certainly dig deeper into that and see, and monitor that. That's good data to follow.
It would be good.
So certainly over the course of the year, we will continue to update you as the board about all of these efforts and how they come together in clear action steps and potential recommendations around strategic planning moving forward. Any other questions from the board?
I think it's great that you're doing stuff with the town, I didn't realize that I wasn't really aware about the Spirit Council, and I think that's a great thing that you're doing there. I love that it's joint instead of us working in that silo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, part of the outreach to other vibrant committees and organizations already in town and partnering with them will be a big piece of that work as well.
Yeah.
I think it's been great. I've enjoyed being on the Equity Council, and I mean, I just think that I love that it's not a knee-jerk reactionary activity. We are definitely including it in what we're already trying to do with global citizenship, and that we're really trying to make a difference in individuals and individual programs and classrooms, and I think that that's the way to do it. And I think I'm really proud of all the work that you've done and thankful for all of the work you've done, because I think it's great. And you've been leading a lot of it, Sue, and we really appreciate all the energies. But I've enjoyed my work with it, and I
Yep.
look forward to going further.
Very much.
It's a great report, too.
Thanks. Thank you very much. That was really comprehensive. It gives us a good idea of where we're headed. So I appreciate all the hard work on everybody's part.
Thank you, Susan.
All right, budget update.
So this is straight nuts and bolts numbers. All right, so.
Just what we want to hear.
Yes, yes. So we are kicking off budget season. So when we come back in January, we'll do a couple things. We're going to start to gather resources for board members in binders, background information and so forth to help facilitate our conversations as we move forward. In January, Sue will be leading a conversation around special education, which is a main driver in our budget. So it'll be both a program review and kind of a look at our program-based budget there to give people an idea of where we've been, where we're headed, and what some of the new needs will be. Neil will come back in the second meeting in January, and that's a pretty large-scale presentation on everything personnel, right? That's the largest driver in our budget. So any new requests that have come up, we'll touch on enrollment again, and we'll really have a conversation of how those dollars play out. You know, of the 70 million, that is over 45 million in salary to think about. So we need to spend time on that and really be thoughtful about what that looks like from a resource standpoint. But really what I wanted to do tonight is touch base on some of our fixed costs. Just give everybody here, give everybody at home a frame of reference on what our numbers look like as we just kind of baseline move into the budget season. We had an opportunity to have we call it our 3-board meeting last Tuesday. It's an opportunity for us to engage in conversation and get some guidance for both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education to get guidance from the Board of Finance. So a couple of the things that the Board of Finance talked about, a desire to keep a mill rate increase under 2%. Keep that mill rate, which we know we have had comparative struggles with over time, below 40, and that's inclusive of the fire district. I won't get into the details of the math of that right now, but that's kind of an all-in number. In order to do that in their planning meeting, when they talk about their levers and reserve levels and grand list growth and those different things, they believe that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed need to be at no higher than a 2.5% operating increase. So what I have up on the big screen is what our fixed costs moving into this look like. So this is a sheet that people that have been with us, we've developed over time. It's kind of a clean one-pager that we'll utilize throughout the budget process. So on top of the sheet are what we call our additions. Those are our roll forward. So if we roll forward our organization at the same size it is today, in terms of contractual obligations and what that looks like. So that top line item is the value of the teacher's increase, followed by the administrative contract, followed by the nurse's contract, the custodial contract, and then what we hold in reserve. We're going to be heading into negotiations is at the spring, Neil, with our paraeducator union and our secretary union. That's our second largest group. So you can see we have a reserve level there. But all in on contracts alone, were a 2% increase. So those are fixed hard numbers. Down below that is an insurance estimate, which is our second largest driver in the budget, and you can see an increase of a little over $600,000. Pension and OPEB, $108,000. I'm going to get back to that line item in a minute because that's going to be very important to our budget process. And some other smaller kind of fixed costs that we have in there lead us to an increase over last year's operating cost of a little over $2 million and 3.26%. What we do from that point is we look at any attrition and staffing that we'll see relative to retirements. So when people retire at the top of the salary scale, we hire new individuals into those same spots there's usually a differential, an average over time, and we take that into account and we subtract that. So that's where that 3%, you can see that all-in number down below of a 3% increase of our fixed costs. That's before any enrollment-related looks. That's before any innovations that our principals or our program directors want to bring to the table. That's just a start. Interesting information that the Board of Finance would like us to do, and I understand the finances behind it, but I think it's a very difficult challenge for us moving forward, and it's something we'll have more conversation on. That line item on pension and OPEB, that represents the annual funding that we put forward to pension plans for our non-certified people. Teacher pensions and administrative pensions are held with the state. These are our unaffiliated employees. And there's a return of rate of investment on those investment dollars. The Board of Finance, within their purview, feels that that rate needs to be lowered to be more reflective of the current market. That creates a dollar impact, right? The lower you go with that, the higher of a contribution you'll have to have. So with the adjustment rate that they're recommending, that's going to be an increase to our operating costs of $400,000. That's not it's not demonstrated there. It would actually take our fixed cost to 3.6. All right. Now, it's important to know that they've asked us to look at it that way. It's also important for you to know, as a board, that we've done this twice in the last 10 years, and both times the Board of Finance has held the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed harmless in those dollars, has not asked them to put them in their operating budget, but handled that at the reserve level as we went through the end of the day. So we're figuring out, just for conversation and how we're going to kind of strategically move through this, how we want to look at that $400,000 increase, because it really skews the fixed cost number at the onset. But I just want people to be aware of that. Members that were at the tri-board meeting know that I talked about that quite a bit and asked them to clarify that. So I think it makes good financial and fiscal sense to do. It's a very difficult cost for us to absorb in its entirety. It's more, I don't want to speak for the Board of Selectmen, it's an even more difficult cost for them to absorb because they have the police pension. It's a $600,000 cost for the Board of Selectmen.
And they spoke of that at the Board of Finance meeting.
Yeah, so people are aware, and these are the levers and the buckets we'll talk about as we move forward, but just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork, get that information out to everybody. The other piece I included, I walked around before the meeting and I popped them in your folder, is just an enrollment snapshot. Neil will obviously get into this in much more detail in his presentations, but there you can see our elementary enrollment is projected to increase by almost 60 students. There is an imbalance of where that is taking place in town. So we are going to have to respond with additional teachers. We're looking at the number of teachers that would be, but it could be upwards of 3 teachers. We do have a reduction projected at the high school enrollment. There will be some FTE. Hopefully we can utilize to offset that increase. But overall, it's going to be a significant challenge to get towards that 2.5% number. So that's kind of the bare bones where we start with things, and there will be tons of information coming forward in the next couple months. But I thought this would be a good place to kind of kick things off and take any questions that people have.
Good kids, because they're like, I'm not going to be here next year.
Kayla was so engaging, you didn't have any questions.
Did either of you go to the tri-board meeting, just out of curiosity, to see what that was about? No? Okay. I was just curious.
No,
Okay.
I don't think we told them about it.
We didn't tell you about it, so it would have been harder for you to get there.
In all fairness.
That's right.
You were behind the eight ball. Sorry. Just a little bit.
You guys got to pass.
All right. So this brings us to our second public audience. If anybody would like to say anything. I'd like to welcome Wendy. Are you our new liaison? Is that your new job for?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So I hope to make as many meetings as I can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you can always watch us on SCTV. On a personal note, Tara, you and I have been hanging around for a really long time together.
Yes, we have.
So I'm happy to follow you and plan on picking your brain quite often. So
You're going to do a great
Thank you
job, and I'm very
for-
happy you're in that seat. It's going to be great for the town. It's going to be great for our kids.
Thank you for the 4 years you gave all of us. You did a great job.
Thanks.
That said, future business, next board meeting is Tuesday, the 14th at 6:30 here at the Board of Ed Conference Room. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
She could make motions again.
I can't, I'm back on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Thank you. All right.
Here we go.